Entertainment, this time Hollywood style, in just under 10 minutes over on BBC1 with Rolf Harrison Cartoon Time. Viewers in Wales see it at 10 to 6.
Nature red in tooth and claw, occasionally furry and often threatened in the new series of The Natural World.
This is the rare mountain gorilla, larger, with thicker fur, and only discovered at the turn of the century. There may never have been thousands of these gorillas. Their range is too limited. But at the last count, there were fewer than 400 left. Their conservation area is tiny, some 25 miles long by perhaps 8 miles wide. They appear to lead a life of leisure in a luxuriant paradise, a salad bowl where they need only to stretch out an arm to reach something succulent to eat.
Join Brian Blessed in The Salad Bowl for The Natural World tomorrow at 7:15 on 2.
Well, now on 2, it's time to open up our film club.
Body and Soul was written by Abraham Polonsky, who was the writer-director of Force of Evil, and it was directed by Robert Rossen, who, after All the King's Men, was blacklisted and then became an informer. And being an informer destroyed him, and he made a whole list of hopeless films like Island in the Sun, Mambo, before coming back to life again with the Hustler, which is in a way a new version of Body and Soul with more guilt in it. And it's interesting to compare the two films, to see The Hustler, which is a pure Rossen film, written and directed by Robert Rossen, and Body and Soul, because you can see the difference of approach between Polonsky and Rossen, between somebody who is politically minded, sarcastic, ironic, I would say funny, analytical, and a director who is existentialist, who has a kind of Jewish pessimism. It doesn't hurt the film, on the opposite. It creates something rather strong, maybe more conventional than Force of Evil, but very, very powerful. The film was the first real serious film about boxing. It's one of the 3 major boxing films with The Setup and Raging Bull. It was, I think, studied very, very carefully by Sylvester Stallone for Rocky, and Rocky, it's absolutely the plot, the theme of Body and Soul, emptied of all the social values and all the content. They just kept the plot and nothing else. There were several people who I think collaborated in a very creative way on Body and Soul. The first one is a great genius, the cameraman James Rongo, who gave the film his look, his style, by a low-key photography, using a lot of backlit, an approach which was at the same time realistical and completely rebuilt in a studio. Rongo contributed to the style of some sequence, like Rossen did not know how to do the boxing match at the end. And Rongo suggested to take some army cameramen. He says, take 8, 9 of them, give them some little Arriflex, and they will shoot around, and I will be myself working around the actors on roller skater. And he did that. And they worked, and they had thousands of feet of films, but which had that wonderful documentary look. And then they didn't know what to do with it, and it's Robert Parrish, who was who just had an Oscar for working with John Ford on his documentaries, who worked on it and who gave to the film his shape, and especially to the last 2 or 3 reels of the film. They experimented a lot, and they gave to the film that approach which is still fresh. But one of the best things is still the dialogue, and it has 1 or 2 lines which are classical. Like, I think it's there is the heavy in it says at one point, life is addition and subtraction. The rest is conversation, which is typical Polonsky line. There are several things that now you should look carefully, in the film. I think it was one of the first films which had a little bit of a jazz score in it. And the theme, body and soul, of course. The second thing is the attitude towards the black, and especially through the character played by Kennedy Lee, which I think was very new. I don't know if it was the first film which was avoiding the stereotypes and the cliché. I've seen some of them already who had that attitude. But at least it was one of the first major picture dealing specifically with that kind of attitude, which was the opposite of the Stephen Fetchit caricature, or the kind of paternalistical look that the Hollywood director had.
So the picture ends as it should, And the little fight I had with Rawson over the end turned out to be all right, because my end is the one we have. He wins the fight. And in doing so, he bankrupts himself. He also endangers his life, so that when he walks out, Roberts, who's the mastermind behind this whole thing, says to him, "Do you think you can get away with this?" And he said, "What are you going to do to me? Kill me?" And then quoting what Roberts said, "Everybody dies," he says, which is what the other man's been saying all through the picture. So that made a marvelous end to the picture. And we don't have to see the very next step where someone kills him, which is what Rawson wanted to do. He had the magnificent idea of having him shot and rolling over and going into a waste bin, and all the waste pours over him. Sad. In any event, we let Rawson shoot both ends. And I must say for Rawson that when he saw both ends, he didn't even want to consider his own. Good for him. It shows that in his whole life he had one moment in which he did something sensible. Which we can't all say for ourselves, can we?
Abraham Polonsky also appears in Friday's edition of Omnibus, which is a complete exploration of the world of boxing, moving between the reality of the fight game and the fiction of films set in the ring. Art in the Ring in Omnibus this coming Friday.